Depending on the advisor, somewhere between 50 and 70% of the people visiting your website are doing it on a phone. Not a laptop, not a desktop, a phone. And for travel advisors specifically, that number tends to be on the higher end of the range, which means the first time most potential clients encounter your site, they're seeing it on a small screen, probably with one thumb, often while they're in the middle of something else. And here's the part that actually matters. Most advisors have never seen their site that way. They built it on a laptop. They check it on a laptop. It looks great on a laptop. The mobile version is something the platform just handles. And that assumption is costing them inquiries they don't even know they're losing. So today, I want to get into something I've started calling the spark moment and why it changes how you should think about your mobile experience on your site. The spark moment is a specific kind of visit. It's not someone sitting at a computer doing careful research on travel advisors. It's someone who is in the middle of something else, watching a travel video, talking about a trip at dinner, lying on the couch thinking about a vacation they keep putting off, and something clicked. And they picked up their phone and started looking. And the thing about spark moment visitors is that they're often your best leads. They're not in comparison mode yet. They're emotionally activated, curious, and open. They're following a feeling. And if your mobile site catches them in that moment, some of them turn into booked calls. If it doesn't, if the experience is rough or slow or confusing, the moment passes and they don't come back. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor Website Show. Hit subscribe. Picture a couple at dinner. They've been talking about doing something for their anniversary, some kind of trip, not sure what. And one of them mentions a friend who just got back from a river cruise in Portugal. The photos looked incredible. They've been thinking about it ever since. Somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, one of them pulls out her phone. Not to do systematic research, just to look. She searches for something like River Cruise, Portugal, Travel Advisor, and your site comes up. She clicks it. Think about what that moment is. She's not skeptical. She's not evaluating you against a list of other advisors. She's curious and open and already imagining the trip. She's in exactly the state of mind where a warm, well-designed site with a clear next step can turn a dinner conversation into a booked call. That's the spark moment, and it almost always happens on a phone. Now think about what she actually finds when she clicks through. The hero photo is cropped in a way that removes whatever was interesting about it. The platform defaulted to center crop and cut off the part that made the image worth using. The headline wraps across 3 awkward lines on a small screen. The button she'd need to tap to book a call is buried below the fold, small enough that she hits the wrong thing twice trying to tap it. The page took 5 seconds to load because the images weren't optimized for mobile, and she almost left before it finished. She closes the tab, goes back to dinner, tells herself she'll look more when she gets home. She doesn't, not because she wasn't interested, but because the moment passed and nothing caught it. That's the mobile experience problem on most travel advisor sites, and it's more specific than just make sure your site works on mobile. It's about understanding who's visiting on a phone, what state of mind they're in when they get there, and what kind of experience they actually need in that moment. There are basically 2 types of visitors who land on your site. One type is doing deliberate research. They've decided they want to work with a travel advisor, they're sitting at a computer, and they're evaluating their options. They're going to read carefully, they're comparing, they're in an analytical mindset. The other type is the spark moment visitor. They're not at a desk. They're following inspiration, something that made a specific trip feel real and possible. And they picked up their phone to act on that feeling before it faded. They're not comparing options yet. They're just curious and open. And that openness doesn't last very long if nothing catches it. For travel advisors, there are more spark moment visitors than most people realize. Travel is a category where inspiration drives action more than research does. People don't decide to take a river cruise because they sat down and did a cost-benefit analysis. They decide because they saw something that made them feel it, and that feeling happens away from their desk. So the advisor who wins those visitors isn't necessarily the one with the most information on their site, or the longest list of destinations, or the most testimonials. It's the one whose mobile site catches the feeling and makes it easy to take a next step while the moment is still open. The most commonplace spark moment visitors get lost first is the hero section, the very top of the homepage. On desktop, a full-width photo with a large headline over it looks clean and impactful. On mobile, that same setup often becomes a mess. The photo gets cropped in a way that removes what was visually compelling about it. The headline wraps across 3 lines or breaks mid-phrase in a way that changes the rhythm of the sentence. The subheadline and the call to action button stacked below all of that which on a phone means there's a lot to scroll past before anyone reaches something they can actually do. A Spark Moment visitor doesn't scroll patiently through a cluttered hero to find the button. They either tap something quickly or they leave. Fix is making your hero text short enough to read well on a small screen, which is usually shorter than what works on a desktop, and making sure the button is high enough on mobile that a visitor doesn't have to scroll to find it. It also means checking that your photo crop on mobile is intentional. Most platforms let you set a focal point for mobile specifically so the right part of the image stays in frame. If you've never set that, it's defaulting to automatic, and automatic isn't always right. The simplest check is just pulling up your homepage on your actual phone and reading it. Does the hero section look like a deliberate design decision, or does it look like something got squished? On desktop, a horizontal navigation with 5 or 6 items across the top of the page is totally normal and works fine. On mobile, that collapses into a hamburger menu, the 3 little line icon, and how well it works depends entirely upon how it was set up. The problems I see most often, the hamburger icon is too small to tap reliably, or the menu opens but the items are close enough together that you tap the wrong one, or the menu opens over the whole screen and there's no obvious way to close it without selecting something. Any one of those makes the site feel broken, and a visitor who hits that doesn't try again. There's something more specific than the general usability issue, though. A lot of advisors have a book a call button sitting in the top right corner of their desktop navigation, visible on every page. That's good. That's exactly where it should be. On mobile, that button usually disappears into maybe the collapsed menu. The most direct path to booking a call, the one that was right there at the top of every desktop page, is now 2 taps deep. A Spark Moment visitor who's ready to act right now has to find the hamburger icon, open it, find the button in the list, tap that. That's not many steps, but it's friction at exactly the moment when you want zero friction. Some platforms let you keep the call to action button visible next to the hamburger icon on mobile, a small book a call that stays accessible without opening the menu, or it could be a sticky button and always visible at the bottom of the screen. If you have the ability to do that, it's worth doing. That button is the whole point. Now, this next one is invisible to most advisors, but it's one of the most impactful issues on mobile because slow loading ends visits before they even start. Travel advisor sites tend to have a lot of photos, large, beautiful, high resolution photos. On a fast Wi-Fi connection at home, those load fine. On a phone, on a normal cellular connection, especially if someone isn't in great coverage, large, unoptimized images can make a page take several seconds to load. People don't wait. A Spark Moment visitor is not a patient visitor. They're on their phone following a feeling, and probably not on Wi-Fi. If your site takes 4 or 5 seconds to load, a real percentage of them close the tab before the page finishes. Image optimization is the fix. Compressing images before they go on the site so they're smaller in file size without looking noticeably lower quality. Some platforms do this automatically. A lot of advisors upload photos straight from a camera on their phone, full resolution, large file sizes, and never think about it again. Google has a free tool called PageSpeed Insights where you can enter your URL and get a mobile speed score, plus a breakdown of what's slowing things down. Image size is almost always near the top of that list. It's worth 20 minutes if you've never done it because speed issues are completely invisible when you're building and testing on Wi-Fi, but they're very real for mobile visitors on cellular. Now, on desktop, small, elegant text can feel refined. On mobile, that same text becomes something people are squinting at or zooming in to read. If someone has to pinch and zoom to read your content, the mobile experience has already failed them. Body text should be readable on a phone without any zooming, generally around 16 pixels or larger. Most platforms let you set text size, and it's worth checking that what feels elegant at desktop scale is actually comfortable on a phone. Headings sometimes have the opposite problem. Set large for desktop, they can end up enormous on mobile, a few words filling the whole screen. So it's kind of a two-sided thing, body text that's too small to read and headlines that are too big and take up too much space. Both of those are worth looking at when you go through your site on a phone. Now, on desktop, you click with a cursor that can be placed precisely. On mobile, you tap with a finger, which covers a much larger area. A button that's easy to click on desktop can be genuinely hard to tap reliably on mobile. For most things on a site, that's mildly annoying. With a button that opens your scheduler, it's a conversion problem. That button is the finish line for a Spark Moment visitor. It's the moment where feeling becomes action. If it's too small, or if it blends into the background, or if tapping it once doesn't work and they have to try again, you've lost someone at the exact moment they were most ready to become a client. On mobile, that button should be large enough to tap with confidence, clearly styled so it's obvious what it is, and easy to find without scrolling the whole page. And it should appear in more than one place, not just once at the very bottom after someone has read through everything. A Spark Moment visitor might be ready to act partway through the page. The button should be there when they are. Okay, I've talked about the case for schedulers over contact forms in other episodes. The 3 yeses episode gets into this in some depth, but mobile is honestly the clearest version of that argument. On desktop, the contact form is inconvenient. Someone has to stop and write out their trip details before they've had a single conversation with you, before they even know if they want to work with you. That friction loses some people. On mobile, a contact form is a much bigger problem. Filling one out on a phone means pulling up a keyboard, tapping each field individually, dealing with autocorrect deciding Caribbean should be something else, going back and fixing it, trying to type coherent paragraphs about a trip you're still imagining on a small touchscreen. Most people abandon that process. They tell themselves they'll come back on a laptop to fill it out properly, and most of them don't. A scheduler is a different experience entirely on mobile. You're not typing, you're tapping. A calendar, a time slot, a name, an email. The whole thing is built for a finger on a touch screen. The friction difference between a contact form and a scheduler is real on desktop. On mobile, it's enormous. And if the Spark Moment visitor is the person you want most to catch, the scheduler is how you catch them. Next, we have a problem with column collapse. And this is more of a design detail, but it creates real problems, and most advisors have no idea it's happening. On desktop, a lot of layouts use side-by-side columns, text on the left, image on the right, or 2 content sections sitting next to each other. That works fine on a wide screen. On mobile, those columns stack. The 2 sections become vertical, one above the other. And depending on how the layout was set up, the order they stack in can break the reading logic in ways that don't make sense. Text on the left says, as you can see in the image with a photo to its right on desktop. On mobile, that stacks with the text on top and the photo below. The text references something that appears after it. Or testimonial section, where a quote and an attribution are side by side on desktop. On mobile, they might stack so the person's name appears before their quote, which reads backwards. Now, none of these are catastrophic on their own, but they create a subtle sense that something's off, and the visitor can't tell you why. And you'll never find them if you only ever look at the desktop version. An actual walkthrough of your site on your phone, reading it the way a visitor would, is the only way to catch these. 2 more things worth checking. Pop-ups. If your site has an email sign-up pop-up, go see how it behaves on mobile. On phones, these often take over the whole screen, and the close button is small enough that it's easy to accidentally submit the form instead of actually dismissing it. That's a frustrating experience, and it's one of the things that Google has flagged as a ranking issue. Aggressive pop-ups on mobile can affect how visible your site is in search results. If you have a pop-up, make sure it's easy to dismiss on a small screen or turn it off for mobile entirely. Photo galleries and grids. If you have a grid of destination photos, a 3-column layout of 12 photos, that grid becomes a single vertical column on mobile. 12 stacked photos is a very long scroll before a visitor reaches any other content. It's worth either reducing how many photos appear on mobile or switching to a swipeable carousel format that keeps the experience compact. A Spark Moment visitor who hits a page that's mostly a long photo scroll isn't going to stay in it. The most important thing you can do is just look at your site on your phone. Not as the person who built it, but as a stranger who just found it and is trying to figure out quickly whether you're the right advisor for their trip. Go through your homepage, read the hero section, try to tap the call to action button. Navigate to one of your specialty pages. Start going through the scheduler. What's hard to read? What's hard to tap? What feels slow or out of order? Make a list. Even small friction points matter for a Spark Moment visitor who isn't going to push through annoyance the way a patient desktop researcher might. For speed, run your URL through PageSpeed Insights on mobile. It's free, it's straightforward, and it'll tell you specifically what's slowing things down. Image optimization is almost always on that list, and it's one of the more fixable issues. And check your scheduler specifically. Not just the button exists, but that the full booking process works smoothly on a phone from start to finish. Pick a date, pick a time, enter a name and email, confirm. Does anything in that process create hesitation? That's the finish line. It should feel completely native to mobile, not like a desktop form that got resized. You don't have to fix everything at once, but getting the booking path right on mobile, making sure a Spark Moment visitor can find the button, tap it, and complete the booking without any friction is the fix with the most direct impact on whether these visits turn into actual calls. The Spark Moment visitor is probably the best lead you have. They arrived in a state of genuine inspiration, not comparing options, not doing research, just following a feeling. And they found your site. Whether that visit turns into a call is almost entirely about what happens in the next few seconds. Whether the page loads, whether the hero section looks intentional, whether there's a button they can actually tap, whether the booking process feels like it was built for a phone. That's worth getting right. There's a lot more in this direction if you want to keep going. Stick around. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor website show. Hit subscribe.